It's a CBS 46 special. Juneteenth. Celebrate, commemorate, educate.
There is no giving up, no giving in, there's no retirement, because we've come too far from where we started from.
It was on June 19, 1865, African Americans were told slavery had been abolished. They were emancipated, finally free. Freedom, which has been hard fought.
No justice, no peace.
Even today.
Black lives matter.
Many are still fighting not to be judged by the color of their skin.
Thanks for joining us for Juneteenth. Celebrate, commemorate, educate. Here at CBS 46, we're recognizing the significance of this holiday in our nation's history.
Well, notice Karen said the word holiday. Now, the push to make Juneteenth a national holiday is taking a giant step forward, with U.S. lawmakers approving historic legislation just yesterday.
On this vote, the yeas are 415 and the nays are 14. The bill is passed.
The measure then headed right to President Biden's desk, and he signed it about 24 hours later.
Now, Juneteenth has come to mean much more than just the end of slavery. For many, it is a call to action.
Everybody, let's enjoy Juneteenth.
It's not the sounds of Stars and Stripes forever. It's not the colors of red, white, and blue either. But what you see here is a celebration of freedom for many in Atlanta's Black community.
Because it allows us to embrace our history. It allows us to reconcile the slave legacy in America. It allows us to build upon a political legacy of freedom.
Juneteenth isn't your typical holiday, and you probably won't even find it on a calendar. It marks the day of June 19th in 1865, when federal troops started to enforce the Emancipation Proclamation that freed American slaves.
You know, a lot of times we get so washed up in all of these man-made holidays about, what doesn't even belong to us, and we forget about the things that do belong to us, and it's not mentioned because it's not taught to us.
Not a holiday, but still celebrated in some communities just as much as the 4th of July, with music, parades, and even cookouts.
Black people want to get together anytime we can barbecue and have a good time and fellowship with family. We're going to take that opportunity. However, it is important for us to know that our celebration of independence of America, that is not Black people's celebration.
That's the important distinction for those who choose to celebrate Juneteenth and not the 4th of July. For them, it's about their true freedom. They say happened nearly 100 years after the Declaration of Independence.
By us being here in this country and how we came to this country, we came as slaves. So to celebrate that and to say that that is no longer our reality, at least in the physical, we should celebrate that.
And last year, they did. Hundreds of people gathered at Mosley Park in Atlanta to celebrate freedom. Freedom from slavery and the freedom to discover their own cultural identity.
And I think that's the thing that scares a lot of white people, to be honest with you, about us finding out about what our days of what was made for us in our culture, to find out about it, because it changes our mindsets, which change the game.
Now, right now, 47 states mark June 19th as an official day of observance. That is except for Hawaii, North Dakota, South Dakota as well. Now, here in Georgia, state lawmakers did not put the holiday on the books until February of 2011. Now, 10 years later, Juneteenth is an official federal holiday.
Now, Tracy, the push to make Juneteenth a national holiday has been the mission for one woman for decades. 93-year-old activist Opal Lee has organized a walk from her home in Fort Worth, Texas, to the nation's capital for years. Well, today, it seems like her journey has paid off. CBS's Jerika Duncan has more on her inspiring message.
At 93,
take that for the children.
Yes, ma'am. Opal Lee is showing no signs of slowing down.
Yes, put it that way.
During the pandemic, she's been delivering food from her farm to families in need. But it's what she's been doing for years that's gaining momentum, taking steps to make Juneteenth a federal holiday.
Slaves in Texas didn't know they were free until a General Gordon Granger made his way to Galveston with troops to tell slaves they were free. But this is 2.5 years after the emancipation.
African Americans then and now have celebrated June 19th as their Independence Day. To highlight that history, Lee started a walking campaign across the country to raise awareness for Juneteenth.
For people who say slavery happened a long time ago, why is this so important to have a national holiday?
I say that there's still a form of slavery going on. If people don't have enough to eat, it's a form of slavery. And none of us are free until we're all free.
On June 19th, more than 80 years ago, it was a life-changing event for Lee. When she was 13 years old, she says a white mob burned down her family's home. That experience drives her to this day.
You've been working on this for decades, and here you are at 93 years old, still talking about it, still walking in honor of it. What's the lesson there?
I'm gonna keep right on doing this until I know it's a holiday, and I feel it in my bones.
And this time, it just feels different. Jerika Duncan, CBS News, New York.
Now, that was a year ago. Opal Lee is now 94 years old, and that feeling in her bones she talked about, well, it has become a reality.
Well, as signs of the Confederacy come down across the country, the state legislature in Alabama recently moved to remove the name of a Confederate officer on a historic bridge. I spoke to the man behind the movement, which honors one of Georgia's native sons.
I see it as a day of remembrance, one of the suffering and the cruelty that African Americans have experienced in this country, but also looking at how far we've come.
This Juneteenth marks a milestone for Michael Starr Hopkins and the project he started just 1 year ago, renaming landmarks in the fight for civil rights. Hopkins' John Lewis Bridge project would rename the Edmund Pettus Bridge after Congressman John Lewis, along with 30 miles of highway from Montgomery, Alabama, leading up to the bridge in Selma.
The city of Selma has sacrificed so much for this country. Civil rights were really fought for on that bridge. And so we wanted to make sure we were recognizing not just John Lewis, but the foot soldiers who walked with him.
You are ordered to disperse, go home, or go to your church. This march will not continue.
The Edmund Pettus Bridge, now a National Historic Landmark, was the site of a brutal attack on voting rights marchers, including a young John Lewis.
In Selma, people have been trying over and over again to get registered to vote. We gave a little blood on this bridge.
Congressman Lewis recounted that day for me on the 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday.
They came toward us, the nightsticks, pushing, shelving, tramping us with horses. I was hit in the head by a state trooper with a nightstick.
You had a fractured skull.
Well, I was hit in the head, seriously hurt. I thought I was going to die on this bridge. I thought it was my last nonviolent protest.
By getting this name, or this road named after John Lewis, this is just the first step in what I hope is, a real change of perception and a real coming together and healing for not just Selma, but for Alabama and for the country.
What would you hope that he would say about renaming this roadway and the bridge after him, Michael?
I think he would say, get back to work. It's a great thing that we did. It was a team effort, but we've also got to make sure we're restoring the Voting Rights Act.
So get back to work. And the fight for free and fair elections continues today across Georgia. Just this month, there have been protests to boycott businesses who have not come out against Georgia's controversial SB 202, which changes how elections are run in our state.
The rules existed and they changed the rules so that they hope they can make sure that they continue to win. And that's not democracy. That's almost acting like a spectator. The rules don't work, so I'm going to change them so that I am guaranteed to win.
That's Martin Luther King Jr. III, or actually Martin Luther King III, speaking out about Senate Bill 202. He supports voting rights advocates who have filed a lawsuit in response to the election changes. Those changes to voting requirements have sparked heated discussions and even led to at least one arrest. CBS 46's Haley Mason was at the center of the debate.
What's the problem?
Governor Brian Kemp's victory speech cut short after signing the controversial voting reform bill, SB 202. Outside the door, State Representative Park Cannon knocking to get in. Cannon is arrested and carried off by Capitol Police as protests erupt around her.
But you're going to tell me that you arrested a sitting state representative for nothing? She didn't do anything but knock on the governor's door.
The boiling point of one of the most divisive bills in recent history, set to change the voting process in Georgia. The bill passed both the House and Senate.
There is no suppression in this bill.
Republicans say the bill expands voting access, touting the addition of weekend voting into law and increased ballot security.
Well, I won't repeat the many good additions to this package of election reforms that will increase accessibility.
Democrats calling it a voter suppression bill as it limits voting hours, gets rid of no excuse absentee voting, reduces the number of ballot drop boxes, only requiring one per county, and only allows ballots to be dropped off during business hours.
This isn't a partisan power grab done in response to the electoral defeat in 2020 election cycle.
And after the November election last year, I knew, like so many of you, that significant reforms to our state elections were needed.
The House Minority Leader James Beverly telling us this is, quote, the most egregious voter suppression bill we've seen in this millennium. He says it will now be up to the courts to decide how this moves forward. Reporting inside the state capitol, Haley Mason, CBS 46 News.
Well, up next, the Black Lives Matter movement, not just important to people of color. Why many Caucasian supporters say they've signed up for the cause.
And be sure to check out our website, CBS46.com, and click on Juneteenth on our homepage. We've got a complete list of all your weekend events in and around Metro Atlanta. Stay with us. We'll be right back.